Good evening, everyone. James Hancock here. I'm back to review tonight's absolutely phenomenal episode of The Orville, Identity Part 2, an episode I'm planning on watching on a loop for the next couple of days. I should admit, this is actually my second attempt at recording the review. During my first attempt, I was such an over-caffeinated lunatic and had my mic turned up just a little bit too high that the entire recording was just this horrible, speaker crackle that would have made the review completely, totally inaudible and absolutely painful for anyone to listen to. But the episode was absolutely incredible, so I think freaking out under those circumstances is always the appropriate response. But last week's episode was quite the phenomenon, and I noticed a recurring theme in a lot of reviews where people seem to agree that the show had hit this major turning point creatively. Looking at this two-parter as a whole, I honestly think it's stronger than most movies that make it to the big screen, and I think that from now on, anytime we see that John Cassar is directing an episode of anything, fans are going to sit up and pay attention. Cassar is quite the seasoned veteran and has been directing for television since the mid-90s, and I was thrilled to see that he was back in the director's chair for tonight's episode. I also read online that there was a slight uptick in viewers last week, with 3 million viewers the night the episode aired, so I'm hoping we'll see the same thing this week, but more importantly, I hope we'll be hearing any day now that the show's been renewed for Season 3. Obviously, it gets complicated with the Disney-Fox merger, but Star Trek Discovery has already been renewed for Season 3, and I think my fragile understanding of the universe might completely disintegrate if the Orville's not allowed to continue as well. But a two-parter as strong as this one could prove to be a double-edged sword. Our expectations will likely be ridiculously high moving forward, but I think MacFarlane and his team, if anything, have repeatedly proven their ability to surpass our expectations. My hope is that the best is yet to come, and that years from now, we'll see young Ty and Marcus, now adults, working right alongside the rest of the crew. So I'm going to throw all objectivity out the window for this review and just tell you in advance that I'll be offering no criticisms. This review is just going to be a giant love fest, one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had watching TV in recent memory. There's so much rancorous debate these days about what direction decades-old franchises should take and what audience those franchises should now try to cater to. And while The Orville is clearly inspired by Star Trek, nonetheless, it is a new show. And the incredible entertainment value of the show underlines what should be obvious to everyone. If storytellers create fresh, new original shows and movies, then all those tiresome debates quickly dissipate and we can just sit back and enjoy the experience of being in the capable hands of master storytellers. First and foremost, the visual effects this episode were just jaw-dropping. While the Orville special effects shots tend to be gorgeous, they also tend to be incredibly brief, so whatever money they've been saving all season was clearly splurged on this episode with one of the most kick-ass space battles ever seen on either the small or the big screen. As fans of Seth MacFarlane know, he has an almost unwholesome obsession with the original Star Wars, in a good way because that movie rocks, but I could feel a lot of that love for Star Wars shining through this episode, in particular during my favorite moment all season, the sight of Malloy flying a Krill fighter into battle against the Kalons. My face was hurting from smiling so much, and I'm not ashamed to admit I even got a little misty-eyed. But so many critics and online commentators have tried to write off this show as a spoof or as a parody, but this giant epic space battle is going to make a lot of people feel really stupid about their premature dismissal of the Orville. I felt absolute waves of chills up and down my neck and back as the battle was racing by our moon towards Earth, with the Orville continuing to fight in spite of multiple hull breaches. But amidst all the chaos and anarchy of this battle, one of the best scenes was when the Krill arrive and we see Kelly standing at the side of Captain Dalek of the Krill as he told Captain Mercer, "Try to stay out of our way." I got so excited that I nearly yanked my arm out of its damn socket just from fist pumping like crazy during that precise moment. And according to IMDb, Seth MacFarlane has the sole screenwriter credit on this episode, and I continue to be amazed by his evolution as a writer and a performer, and I'm not afraid to use the word artist. It's just incredible. And somehow Seth MacFarlane manages to sneak jokes in even when dealing with a conflict as potentially bleak and grim as this one. Whether you're talking about Lamar yelling, "Boom, bitch," in combat, or Malloy telling the crew about the pea corner in the shuttle bay, this show always manages to walk that very delicate tightrope of injecting levity into the story without distracting from or dispelling the overall sense of tension and excitement. Finding heart and emotion in unlikely places has always been one of the show's key strengths, but if someone had told me years ago that one day I would get teary-eyed watching Norm Macdonald playing a slime creature promising a boy's mother to keep her son safe, I would have laughed in their face. Yet arguably one of the most epic moments all episode was watching Yaphet nearly fry himself alive, hurling himself into the face of one of the Kalons, trying to give Ty a chance to escape. This episode was filled from start to finish with acts of self-sacrifice and heroism from nearly all of the crew. Tala's nearly killed charging in to protect Ty. Kelly and Malloy volunteer to go on a suicide mission in a shuttle to solicit help from the Krill. And best of all, Isaac slowly but surely comes around and abandons his own people in order to try and save humanity. As we come to learn, Isaac's a second-generation Kaelon. The first generation was enslaved by their creators and had pain receptors installed in their bodies to guarantee their loyalty. Consequently, their goal now is to exterminate all biological life in the galaxy. In order to kill Ty personally, Isaac goes on an absolute rampage, twists off the primary's head, mows down several other Kaelons, and sacrifices himself in order to emit an electromagnetic pulse that will deactivate every Kaelon on board, including him. But quick side note, in Season 1, when Isaac, Ty, and Marcus are stranded on an alien planet and they're surrounded on all sides and they're fighting to the death, that little trick of opening up their head and shooting all the cannons probably would have come in handy, but perhaps at that point his programming was forcing him to keep that ability a secret. In any event, Yaphet now has a keen understanding of Kaelon circuitry and is able to slip inside Isaac and reactivate him, and Ed fights really hard to keep Isaac on board and takes full responsibility for all of Isaac's actions moving forward. While he and Claire Fenn aren't necessarily back where they were before all this crisis started, you can tell he is on the beginning of the road to forgiveness with some of the crew. Plus, he's going to be a secret weapon against the Kaelon in the future. While they may have retreated, they're still out there, and they will definitely be seen again, and I'm sure in a far more terrifying capacity. The only positive is that the Krill and the Union at least appear to be enjoying a temporary ceasefire for the time being, at least until the next episode, where the teaser revealed that the Krill will be returning. Like many people, I worried that the Orville would have trouble sticking the landing after last week's episode, but Part 2 went so far above and beyond my expectations that I'm embarrassed to admit that I ever felt any doubt. I think it's safe to say that this is officially my favorite show on TV, or at least it is until the final season of Game of Thrones. We'll have to wait and see how well that final season delivers. At any rate, I hope the show continues for many years to come, and I look forward to reviewing each and every episode, no matter how long we're lucky enough to have it around. But I hope you enjoyed my over-caffeinated reaction and review. I'll have to learn to keep my enthusiasm slightly in check in the future so I don't butcher future recordings. But if you want to talk about this show or about the Orville, about Seth MacFarlane, whatever, definitely look me up on Twitter at Colbrax. There's a link in the description below. I'm always there day or night. But if you enjoyed this review, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But for the time being, so long. I'll be back at y'all next week reviewing the next episode of the Orville. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.